Hi. Joining the conversation right now is our borough president. Mr. Borough President, how are you?
Quite well yourself. Good to see all of you this morning and continue a good dialogue each week.
Mr. Borough President, last week, Mr. Borough President, last week when you were joining the conversation, you spoke about heading off to a meeting to deal with the small businesses that are having a challenge with losing their license and that type of thing. We have on today, we have one of the small business owners from East Flatbush, the Hills Restaurant. And we were just talking about some of the challenges that they have faced. Number one, the fine, the $40,000. That's like a tariff. What should we and what could we do to change this?
Well, I would love to hear what happened because there's a combination here. Some cases are individualized and other cases are universal. And as I pointed out with a group of business owners, particularly in the nightlife establishment and restaurant industry, how our businesses have been targeted by a combined effort of the FDNY, the New York City Police Department, and the State Liquor Authority. And so if talking about a particular case, we should drill down on that case. But my goal is also to look at how we have weaponized all of these agencies to really go after these small businesses, in particular in gentrified areas. And I reached out to the Attorney General to conduct an investigation. I'm going to have hearings with the chair of the small business committee in the City Council, Councilman Mark Jonah, because we need to really shed a light on what has been happening in the displacement of small businesses. Not only do I think we need to make it right, but I think there should be some form of punitive damages paid to these businesses so they can really right size and correct some of the wrongs that have been inflicted on them in the future. So if there's a particular case, we should drill down on that and try to deal with that fine. But there's a larger agenda that I'm looking at as well across this entire city.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President Eric Adams. Nola Rowe, you're on the panel. Would you say good morning to our Borough President?
Absolutely. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. I mean,
how are you?
President.
Good to see you.
Let's speak it into existence. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. I saw you at the press conference last week, just saying exactly what needs to be said. And we truly appreciate that because now the right people are listening.
So important.
Nola, you wanna circle back and talk about the $40,000 fine that you had to pay in 40 days? I mean, for most businesses, that would cripple them. They will be completely out of business.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned earlier, the only reason why we were able to get through this is because our customer base is a super loyal bunch of people. They have stepped up. They've always come through for us, and we could not have done it without them. But yes, our license was suspended. And I will tell you, I have been to court with 18 summonses, 18. And stepped up to a judge who was just livid because she felt like, the people who issued those summonses were wasting her time. 18 summonses that range from a fire extinguisher that wasn't installed properly, a exit sign with a dead battery, and things of that nature. And then all 18 were thrown out. So just dealing with things like that, not only are you of course we had to pay fines, but not only are you paying out this money, but it's time that's taken away from being at your business and actually doing what you're supposed to be doing to keep your business afloat.
And it's so important. This case is, and I'm pretty sure there are people out here that may be saying, okay, this is something that happened to this one business. No, not true. when I started to sit down and build a fact pattern, we have been doing this for approximately 2 years. And when I started to see this same fact pattern, there was clear, intentional, direct attacks on this business. Look at Fernando Mateo in the Bronx, in Washington Heights. The entire stretch of Washington Heights was a drug-infested, serious crime problem. A group of Dominican business owners started to open up and revitalize that entire stretch. Gentrifiers moved in and used the police to put in place roadblocks 10 blocks from his business, which was on the waterfront. A successful restaurant. He put around $6 million into development of the establishment. They put roadblocks in place, 10 blocks from the business, not allowing people to drive down the block to get to his business. They suffocated his business, took it away from him, then turned it over to a white owner of the establishment after he built it out. Case after case after case, you'll have a police officer sitting outside an establishment with the lights running to really deter customers from coming inside with the task force while you're inside running your business, turning on the lights, walking in with uniformed personnel, harassing the customers, telling them you can't leave, summonses after summonses. And here's the interesting part. After the summonses are thrown out in court, then the state liquor authority used these city summonses to make a determination of revoking licenses from legal establishment or restricting their hours of operations. And this is not happening to other establishments throughout the entire city. This is, I believe, an intentional attack on Black and brown businesses to close them down in gentrified areas using the tools of their tax dollars is going to weaponize the agencies to destroy their businesses.
JR, may I say something?
Sure.
So I did see an interview with Mr. Mateo on Power 105. And when he told his story, it was a very long story with obstacle after obstacle. And my mom and I sat there in disbelief and we were both like, is that his story or is it ours?
Right.
The story was identical. Every single thing that he had gone through, we had gone through. And it just really solidified the fact that, okay, this is an intentional plan and we have to get our shoelace tied up and battle this.
Well, once again, I want to reiterate everything that you're saying, Nola. This is serious. Our community, we have been on that tack for a while. And the borough president, the Congress, I'm going to continue to tell everybody how important it is for us for the right leadership. So please stick around, Nola, don't go anywhere. We're going to continue the borough president. Mr. Borough President Eric Adams, 272 New York officers filed for retirement since George Floyd's death. Is it because of the exposure of their conduct, or is this a coincidence? What are your thoughts?
A combination, and people shouldn't look at this as a sad moment. You should look at it as an opportunity. Throughout history, and particularly in the police department, there's been a level of arrogancy that we're going to police Black and brown communities the way we want. And if you complain, we won't police you at all. And we cannot be held blackmailed or be held hostage by wrong or inappropriate policing. Justice and public safety goes together. You can't have safety without justice, and you can't have justice without public safety. So a lot of those officers that have retired, keep in mind, they already have finished their 20 years in the police department. Many of them have historically just hung around, collected overtime, patented their pensions, and they were not held to the high standard that policing is supposed to be held to. So now that the jig is up, as my son would say, many of them saying, you know what, it's time to get out of here because we can't do what we've always done. And I say good riddance. of, you must understand that public safety is taking a new direction, and the style of policing must come with the right mindset, the right skill set to communicate, and the right passion to save lives and not abuse lives and police the same across the city. Now, with that said, let's be clear, and I really want us to understand this. Black Lives Matter. It doesn't matter if a police officer in a blue uniform shoots someone inappropriately, or someone that's a gangbanger in blue jeans shoots someone. We had 101 people shot last week in New York. One of the victims was a man that was walking the street in the Bronx with his 6-year-old child. Every shooter was Black and brown. Every victim was Black and brown. I'm not going to sit back and state that I'm going to relinquish the safety of this city. The last time we had 100 people shot in 1 week was in 1993 when I was a police officer. And I knew what these cities, our city and our community look like. We have a handgun crisis. We have to stop the flow of that. I demand that the commissioner come up with a real plan of dealing with handgun enforcement. And then I want families to get involved, because before a gun hits the street, it's under someone's mattress. It's in someone's book bag. We have an obligation to police our homes and make sure our children are not caught up in this real cycle of serious violence in our city. We can't go backwards on public safety. And I want to encourage people to stand up and fight for real changes in handgun laws. The country addresses AK-47 assault rifles. That's a suburban issue. Handgun is an urban issue. The victims of handguns are Black and brown, and I believe that's why you're not seeing the sort of response that we should see.